What's up, everybody? This message is kind of more for my truck drivers and my logistics folks. FMCSA has just submitted paperwork to modify the hours of service to OMB, Office of Management and Budget. And they're trying to modify the 14 hours of service. So instead of doing 8 hours consecutive work with a 30-minute break on duty, not driving on your logbook, they're going to allow you to do the 30 minutes on duty, not driving instead of off duty. That's cool. I'm like the stuff that I read had me debating with myself. So forgive me if I stop and pause because I'm sitting there like thinking while I'm telling what I read. Let me get through the stuff that was easy first. The stuff that was easy first is they give, instead of normally if you have adverse conditions, they'll give you an extra hour to run. I'm quite sure a lot of y'all know that if adverse conditions, you get an extra hour depending on weather conditions. They're changing that. They're possibly changing that to 2 hours, which I think is a good idea. That would give you 2 extra hours to move if the weather was adverse. The other one is the 100-mile to 150-mile rule, which is you can work 12 straight hours. I believe only with taking a break on duty, not driving right now. You'll be able to work 14 hours, 2 hours extra more for those working local, 100 miles to 150 miles, which is good if you it gives you more time to, I guess, get that extra load in. Now, the part where this gets tricky is now they're saying instead of having to do 10 consecutive hours in the sleeper berth, it might go back to what it used to be, which was you could split the sleeper berth. Now, I haven't had to split logs in a long time, but it's saying that you have to do a mandatory 7 consecutive hours. You can take another break of 2 hours, which would only give you a 9-hour rest period, but that's what the article said, 2 hours. But I'm gonna assume it's 3 to cover the other 10-hour total break to cover the 10 hours. Now, my question becomes, if they make it so that you no longer have to do the 8 consecutive hours, whether it be driving or on duty, not driving, when you take the 30-minute break and turn that into off duty, not driving time, how does that affect your rest period? If you do your 7 consecutive hours, start your workday, do 7 hours, take your 30-minute break, right? Depending on how much mileage you've done and depending on when your delivery time is, you could take that other 3 hours during your 30-minute break and get a fresh set of 8. I'm confused. I'm really confused. I mean, if you could splitting the sleeper berth is going to help a lot of people out. You know what I mean? 7 hours down and then you can start running again. That'll help a lot of people out. You still got to show that you took that other 3-hour break to show that you can get a restart. But if you do 7 hours, start your workday, stop, take your 30 minutes. Instead of taking 30 minutes, take the other, if you got time, take the other 3 hours. Does that give you a restart? That's my question. But the flexibility of that, if that's what that means, then that's a good thing. And the way that they're framing it in the article is that it gives flexibility to the driver and more safety to, the motoring public, which is true, because anytime you can pull over and get a couple hour nap in is usually all I used to need to get me going to wherever it was that I was going. But 7 straight hours work, then take another 3 hours, do I get a restart? That's my question. That's my question with the whole thing. I've been had the idea that they should have changed the driver flexibility laws, though, because the way that it's set up now, you can't get a good day's worth of mileage out before you got to shut it down and get your 10-hour restart. And I think right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I said, if I'm wrong, please, by all means, somebody leave a comment. But don't you have to take 10 consecutive hours right now? Like, you can't split the sleeper berth. So I mean, that was one of the I was catching log violations left and right because I couldn't split the sleeper berth anymore, and it takes away from drive time. If you got to go from Miami to Baltimore, then it would take like what 2.5, 3 days now, because you got to make sure you stop and get the 10-hour consecutive. So if you can split it, it will probably take you about a day and a half, 2 days to get from Miami to Baltimore. So I think it's going to help. I think it's really something that's going to help. I mean, if as long as drivers act responsibly with it, then, you know, I mean, you shouldn't have too many problems. I mean, like I said, a quick nap always used to help me. So if you can take your 7 and then, you know what I mean, pull over, get another 2, at least you can get the mileage and to hopefully get to wherever your destination is that, you know, you need to do your delivery. So I think in a way this might help. Like I said, there's an article on it on the Contract Fortune Facebook page. If anybody can help me get a little bit more clarity on it, I definitely would be grateful for that. But if that's the case, man, that'll really help a lot of guys out there. So as always, this was just something that was on my mind, and I wanted to see if anybody else had an opinion on it. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to ContractFortune.com. Then that way you can become a part of the family and you know, get access to the website, as well as knowing upcoming events, as well as you know, all the educational services that we have for you. So I hope it works out, and I hope it goes through, because that will help a lot of guys out. Stay safe out on that road, man.